What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Off the Wall. My name is Bogz with my girl Sol. How are you today, Sol?
Hello, everyone. Doing good today. Ready to review Oppenheimer.
That's right. Today we are doing a spoiler review of the movie Oppenheimer, obviously directed by the great Christopher Nolan, starring a host of great actors. Obviously, Cillian Murphy. We've got Robert Downey Jr. We've got Emily Blunt, Florence Pugh. The list goes on. So, what are your initial thoughts on the movie Oppenheimer?
I really enjoyed this movie. When I was younger, kind of middle school, high school age, I was kind of obsessed with World War II. And so
Mhm.
I'd read a whole bunch of books on World War II, both in Europe and in Asia, everything that was going on. So this kind of was up my alley and reminded me of that time when I was very obsessive about learning everything I could. I thought it was well directed, it was well acted, and the pacing was well. I did not feel the length of this 3-hour movie when I was watching it. I did participate in Barbenheimer, and it was actually Barbie, the shorter film, that I felt the length in, where
Hmm.
this film I did not.
That's a long day at the cinemas. What's that? A 3 hour
Yes.
and a 2 hour movie. Wow.
Mhm.
Plus trailers and everything. Wow. That's a hell of a double feature. But okay, so for me, this movie, is it well made? Yes, incredibly so. Is Nolan one of the best directors in the history of cinema? Yes. One of the best living working directors now. So I'm definitely a fan. Does it have kind of amazing sequences and interesting themes? Some parts brilliant. Yes. I concede all of that. And some of the performances are really, really good as well. Some people who haven't been this good in years, which we'll come to a bit later, of course. Some of the reviews as well, I'm a little bit baffled with. Some people calling this movie like Nolan's best ever work, or like the film of like the decade, or the millennium, or whatever. I'm not getting that. I kept up with the story. I also didn't feel the length. Obviously, it's a long movie. I quite like biopics and historical pieces. I'm gonna call it a period piece. I do really enjoy that stuff. I really struggled with this movie, and it's particularly with the editing. In particular, okay, so obviously doing the storytelling out of sequence, and also introducing so many characters in both timelines. I wasn't getting lost, well, more and more frustrated as the movie went on. So yeah, of course, Nolan regularly does this non-linear kind of storytelling, and in that way, it's an encouragement to make you see the movie again. And Nolan wants you to do that. He wants you to watch the movie several times. You can pick any one of his movies from his catalog, and that's his style of storytelling. But quite frankly, I do not want to watch this movie again. I felt it almost pretentious to a certain point. Some fascinating ideas, like I said, good performances, and there's a lot to discuss narrative wise, in even in terms of morality as well, which I'll come to a bit later. But ultimately, I don't feel the way they were depicting Oppenheimer. Like I didn't feel for him. Like I didn't root for him in any way. I couldn't put myself in his shoes. Like even the family scenes, and I just felt like I wasn't emotionally invested in this story at all in any way. This movie was for cinephiles, and it was for hardcore Nolan fans. And I feel like if you are a hardcore Nolan fan, you will like he was singing your hymn. About halfway through, I just knew that I was gonna have issues with this. It was just scene after scene of a bunch of guys just talking, too much dialogue, exposition, just over and over and over again. And it was a bit of a slog to get to the end. I was somewhat interested because I actually don't know this post-bomb situation and the trials and where the story goes and what happened to Oppenheimer. To be honest, I still don't actually know what happened to Oppenheimer. Obviously he died in the 60s and stuff, but his actual story, post these trials, I don't know. And I thought it was going to depict that, but it kind of didn't. But that part was my favorite parts of the movie, the trial stuff, the interrogation that they kind of all went through. Some of that was really gripping. So, like I said, there is masterful stuff being done here, but the story, I was so disconnected from it. It felt really bleak. And yeah, I'll get into that deeper, but obviously, you got to respect the auteur filmmaking that he's doing. No CGI. The sound design is kind of so amazing at times. Um, the cinematography, the camera work, these are all things that make Nolan one of the best directors of all time. But it's a shame that the story was, for me, was not as engaging as like his other work, or what I thought, what I was expecting going in. We're not going to do absolutely a full breakdown. It's a 3 hour movie, we'll be here all day. But I just want to ask you about the kind of non-linear storytelling in this movie, and also the different color storytelling as well in the movie. It seems like, I don't know if you had the same observation, but it seems like the color was Oppenheimer's perspective and the black and white telling was when he wasn't involved in the story, or from the other character's perspective, so Strauss's perspective basically. What were your thoughts on the actual storytelling?
Yeah, I completely agree that when you are seeing it in color, it is from Oppenheimer's perspective. When you're seeing it in black and white, it's from Strauss's perspective, and him trying to get a cabinet position, which you don't really understand at the very beginning, and you don't get that he's in front of the Senate for a Senate hearing for a cabinet position. And I think if you are outside of the US, or you are like a US citizen but you don't follow politics very well, you're not going to understand why is this person in front of the Senate having to have that ancillary or back like knowledge what is going on in the story. I actually really enjoyed the storytelling, but it was one of those that you have to wait until the end of the movie to fully understand what's going on both sides, even to the fact of Strauss having anger towards Oppenheimer because he thinks that he made Einstein hate him. He's like, he said something about me, and you don't hear the conversation until the very end of the movie, and it has nothing to do with Strauss. So there is this hatred for Oppenheimer that Strauss has because he thinks one of the greatest minds in the world, Einstein, hates him for some reason, and that you really do get to see the political machinations of what's going on in the background by the end of the movie. You're not fully understanding it in the moment, but you understand it later in the movie. And I kind of thought that that was brilliantly done, but it's one of those that you have to pay attention. If you're not paying attention to this movie, you're not going to get fully what's going on, and that can kind of be a flaw. So it is something that someone that either reviews movies a lot or loves watching movies, those type of people are going to really get what's going on. Yeah, regular audience might not, or might have to see it a few times to fully understand the linear storytelling that it's doing.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought from the opening
Yeah.
moves along history so quick, like, and it's doing so many things like physics background and his kind of genius level that he's at, his celebrity status within that community, his family life, Einstein, and the Manhattan Project. He obviously got recruited for several different characters you're meeting along the way, like I said, going forward and back in time. You're having different colors going on. The further the movie went, I just got more kind of tedious with it, to be honest. I was interested at somewhat where it was going. I did establish quite early, oh, this is Oppenheimer's perspective, and the black and white one when he's not in any of them scenes. It's particularly the black and white stuff. It just kind of summarized the bleak feeling that I had with it. Like, we didn't kind of get to sit down and know Oppenheimer's thoughts and feelings about things. They would portray, like, even him recruiting all the different scientists. It's obviously not Cillian Murphy's fault. I mean, I guess it can be the writing. He wasn't giving his opinion on whether it's right or wrong, the morality, the decision making. He was just recruiting to almost complete a project. Yeah, I get that needs to be done, but I wanted to be emotionally invested. Like, is it right? Is it wrong? Who's pulling you left and right? I wasn't really getting that. They were just depicting the story. Adds a level of pretentiousness that took me out of the movie a little bit, and it took me away from being so invested in the story. I didn't get the challenge that he was facing, the moral thing that he had to face up to, the things at play. It fails to deliver like the bigger issues throughout the Manhattan Project. Their aim is to make a bomb to drop on Nazi Germany or the Soviets, or or anyone else they're fighting in World War II. Quite frankly, everyone at play there, whether it's the army, Matt Damon's character, let's say, or the army, or the president, or the people in the Manhattan Project, they are partaking in genocide. And there's no real discussion of that in the movie. Obviously, towards the end, yes, where they're kind of celebrating everything, and you're doing the whole kind of Nolan sound effects, and you can hear his kind of inner monologue. But there's no kind of moral discussions about, is this right thing to do? We're going to kill hundreds of thousands of people. They were just so set on the tasks at hand, and that's why I'm not. I was expecting that going in. I was expecting that. How can you justify creating an atomic / nuclear bomb? And it just wasn't really discussed. It was like, yeah, we need to do it. We need to be in the Nazis. We need to get there before. Okay, but I was just expecting to be more invested in the story and for them to address face on, and I just didn't really get that as much as I wanted
Mm.
to. But ultimately, I felt it undelivered on the character stuff and the struggles that he was facing. But I don't know what you thought about the like I said, they did address it in the movie. I'm not saying they didn't address it, but
Yeah.
I was expecting way more of a character study.
I feel like we did get a character study of it. Early on in the movie, you're seeing an Oppenheimer who's willing to speak out and speak his mind, that he doesn't consider himself a communist, but there's parts of the American Communist Party that he agrees with, and there's stuff that he doesn't agree with. And that ultimately does get him in trouble because he's even in the trial, his wife, known communist, and his friends, known communist. And that was a very big deal in the US at that time. Walt Disney had to testify because they thought he was a communist. And I felt that you saw the struggle in his physical acting. And when people were asking him what his actual thoughts were, you could see the struggle on his face. You could see it kind of just the way he was portraying it. And I think too of it was genocide, but you have to remember these scientists were all Jewish, or most of them were Jewish. And so for them, they were doing something against Nazi Germany. And I can't understand the feelings of being Jewish at that time and wanting to do something to stop the genocide of your own people. When it did switch to Japan, I can give you that there should have been more discussion on that of ending the war, although you do get that very brief with Secretary of Defense speaking on, oh, we'll save more lives if we drop the bomb than if we
Mm.
actually, oh, let's not drop it on Kyoto. There is significant cultural
Mm.
reference. And my wife and I went there on honeymoon. I laughed, but like not in a, oh, this is a good thing. I'm like, that's probably something that one of them thought, like, oh, we can't do it there. I like that place. We can kill people
Mm.
somewhere else. To me, I felt that the physical acting of Cillian Murphy in as Oppenheimer was really giving it more. And then to the awe of the bomb working, and then his like speech at the end, the what he's telling the people and then what he's actually thinking. And we're seeing that and seeing the juxtaposition of, oh fuck, I just dropped an atomic bomb. Like, even though I physically didn't do it, it's
Mm.
something that if it wasn't for me and the other scientists here, this wouldn't have happened.
I felt like Oppenheimer was playing both sides, meeting with the president and saying, I feel like I've got blood on my hands. But, and then also cheering, getting a crowd going, saying, oh, we should have done it earlier. And you dropped it on the Nazis. Like, either way, you're talking about mass murder. But this is what I mean. This stuff, what we're talking about now, it wasn't discussed in the movie between the characters. Here and there, like you say in the Secretary of Defense, when they mentioned, oh no, let's not bomb now. I went to honeymoon there. It was really nice. Like, even just that kind of stuff, yes, like that's the stuff that I found fascinating. And it was just more of completing the project, getting the science straight, and get the scientists on board together. It was like I don't know, it was almost like a passion project without them realizing the implication of, okay, we're going to kill hundreds of thousands of people here.
These kind of people that have such brilliant minds,
Hmm.
all they want to do is test their theories out and see if their scientific theories actually work.
Hmm.
And when they were given a project, I can kind of see it as, let's see if this works. Splitting atoms, yeah, it makes a bomb, but it also does other things as well.
Hmm.
Um, that furthers scientific research going forward. They obviously didn't speak on this in the movie, but yeah, science for science sake without thinking of any of the consequences.
Hmm. Or the fact that should they do it? Again, it did get briefly touched on, like, oh, if we do it, we could destroy the whole world. It could just keep going.
Einstein to be like,
Yeah.
because you could see that he's having internal struggles on, if this drops, it could continue and continue and continue and annihilate the
Hmm.
entire world.
Hmm.
And even speaking to Matt David's character was like, I would like zero. Well, there's only so far theory can take you, so it's at near zero.
Just to confirm as well, I didn't feel like they addressed the horrors of it. These guys did an unbelievable thing, and like their wives never addressed it, or the people around him, or just so many little things like that that I was expecting going in. For some reason, I was expecting this kind of story, like because the character, the actual guy Oppenheimer himself. I've seen post and the build up to this movie and afterwards and stuff. Like he is a rather odd individual. Like I'm on about physically, he looks odd. Like he looks kind of a little bleak, a little dead behind the eyes, and I'm not surprised. I mean, you made a bomb that killed over 200,000 people like that. So I'm not surprised, and I wanted to get into the psyche of that. And I thought, oh, got the right actor. He kind of looks like him. Christopher Nolan, with the whole into psyche kind of stuff. And
I think it was more of a show than tell kind of, which I think Nolan is good with the whole psyche stuff. It's more of a show, the psyche and his duality, than to actually speak on it. Because I think to speak on it would probably get you kicked out of the project, or maybe even treason. Who knows?
I'd expected that then things would happen, and we didn't really get to see that as well. Maybe it didn't happen, I don't know, but I just felt like as the movie went on, he would put the kind of moral questions out there, with the blood on the hands things and the trials, and was this the right thing to do as a consequence? But they just didn't do it as much during the story, during like the middle section of the movie. They just didn't do it. Oh, it's like what every world power is doing, let's create a bomb. Everyone's thinking the same thing, let's create a bomb, and there's never really kind of any dialogue or discussion to stop to say, is this
I was gonna
sorry.
say, he says create peace on Earth, because if they see the destructive power of this bomb, it'll that no one will ever want to drop a bomb again. And it was the reverse. It was just like, now let's do the hydrogen bomb. But that was said like 2 or 3 times in the movie, was like, if we drop this, humanity will see how awful it is, and then we'll have peace on Earth.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Trying to put a spin on it as if somehow it's impressive, or like, people will be in awe of their science, so to not mess with them. So these are nail on the head stuff. I was looking for more subtlety, like for example, when he went home, his sleepless nights, let's say, or discussing with his spouse, or things like of that nature, which would be kind of real life things that you're dealing with, or like his kind of nightmares, let's say. We see his brilliance throughout the movie, leading and ingenuity in position, and him kind of wanting to lead the Manhattan Project, and kind of having to earn the respect, and being a bit of a salesman as well, in terms of within that kind of community, recruiting people, and seeing his brilliance, because they're all basic geniuses as well. And the kind of pressure that comes along with that. We did touch that stuff. But again, for me, I wasn't really engaged in any of that, because they were just kind of skimming the surface. So like I wasn't rooting for him in any way. So the only part I did actually root for him was during like the Trinity test, just for the achievement, of, oh, okay, it's worked. There's a whole project, years in the making. Like kind of he's been groomed for it his whole life. And that obviously in of itself was, apparently there's no CG being used there. So it was really, fantastic thing to see in the theater, obviously with the sound design, the blast, happening so far afterwards as well. It was all really good. And the aftermath was intriguing as well. Obviously all the trials and the build up and the tension, them kind of being put on the stands, Strauss and Oppenheimer. So what do you think of the actual effects of the blast, the actual design of it, and the designs throughout the movie as well? You heard the atoms and kind of pulsating throughout the movie. Just a few jump scares as well. I felt just randomly, like when they're discussing something, like like a huge echo out of the blue.
That was weird, where like there'll be moments, or like when he's laying in bed, or like when he's discussing, and you get the wah, 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 like and you're like, okay.
Like God. Yeah.
And a lot of other like films do this, but when you're the countdown and then it going silent, and yet every time I fall for it. I think it's a brilliant sound design and choice of when there is an explosion, for it to go silent, especially when you have the spectacle of the way it looks on screen, and it looks so good. that to have no sound and then the sound to come in. And then also, and this is my music nerd moment of there was a little bit of a variation on Lacrimosa from Mozart's Requiem. So it wasn't completely the full Lacrimosa, but it was doing like a variation on it just because I've sang that piece before and I know a little bit about that piece. And whenever it is played in kind of those sad, dark moments, moments that referencing death, and it being played there, that sound design worked for me.
So I also want to discuss the acting in the movie as well. You know, it was strong across the board. I want to know sort of maybe who some of your favorites were, the standout performances, and why.
I really liked Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. He played the character of Strauss so well because he is that political figure and that figure that says the right things and seems like a nice guy, like front facing. Then you really get to see what he's doing behind the scenes that is setting everything up and kind of a little evil, a little maniacal.
Thought it was really good as well. It was nice to see him in a kind of non-superhero role and getting like he was
Mhm.
in more than I thought he would be. He was like he's like the second lead in the movie. Yeah, he was fantastic. I thought Matt Damon was particularly good. I
Mhm.
thoroughly enjoyed his character. Yeah, definitely unlikable at times, but I actually like that he's like that
Yeah.
because he was the only character who was kind of who made any attempt to stand up to Oppenheimer really like to his face, you know, and his um and yet would challenge him and things like that, even though he
Mhm.
recruited him in the first place. But I did enjoy his character. I quite liked Alden Ehrenreich's character as well. I know he was the kind of moral guidance at the end of the movie with Strauss, but I just liked his approach to you know, kind of being on his side 1 minute and then realizing switching
Yeah.
it up. It was nice to see him do other work. But yeah, across the board, they're really good. I thought the girls were good as well. Obviously, Emily Blunt
Yeah.
and Florence Pugh. I wish they were kind of in it more, both of them. Especially particularly Florence Pugh. She, you know, she's in a few scenes, what 3 or 4 scenes, and they could have done more with her character. But the little they do have, you know, super intriguing. Particularly like courtroom scene where she's kind of on top of him and like naked and like and Emily Blunt. I was like, whoa, what is this going on
Yeah.
here? So yeah, it was like a dream sequence. It was super creepy and stuff. But yeah, Emily Blunt's character, that's what I thought like I would see more of the emotional stuff, the
Yeah.
personal, you know, morality stuff around, which I didn't get that. Although her performance was good, particularly the ending, you know, her kind of helping him out in that interview situation and stuff. But yeah, I mean, across the board, the acting was really good. So I really thought this movie was pretentious. Like I said, incredibly well made. I'm a Nolan fan, big Nolan fan, but lately his movies, for me, it's almost like he's very full of himself. I'm talking Dunkirk, I'm talking Tenet, and I'm talking this as well. And has he earned that? Quite frankly, he has. Like, he's one of the best directors of all time. Like, I mean that as well. Like, he's one of the last few surviving directors that can probably get away with pitching to a studio, getting away with anything they like in terms of this is my vision, my project. No one could stop me. And I felt like that was I think he needs to be reeled in a little bit. And I do like he, you know, creates original stories and they're cinematic, you know, masterpieces. But it's like anything he does is genius. And if you question it, you don't get it, or there's something kind of wrong with. No, like he wasn't kind of like these are just his latest films. I'm having these kind of not connecting to them emotionally, but his previous movies were kind of amazing. You know, Interstellar, Inception, the Batman trilogy, Insomnia. I love them. Uh, the Prestige. They're amazing, intriguing movies, but they're lately that they're just so pretentious. They're too far and they're too distant and they're quite bleak. And the editing in particular and the creative choices didn't sit well with me throughout the whole movie. I thought I'd get comfortable with it, but I really wasn't. I was getting more uncomfortable with it the more the movie progressed. And the more it was kind of just skipping the surface on the emotional morality stuff. And it was kind of more concentrated on the, oh, let's jump back forward in time and then kind of connect the story together. It was more focused on that, and it didn't sit well with me. Overall, like I said, well made, definitely for cinephiles, for kind of Nolan, kind of churchgoers. You know, he's singing your kind of hymns. Like most Nolan movies, he relies on the audience, for you guys and me, to watch it again. I will not be rewatching this movie again in any time soon. The same with Dunkirk, I've seen once. The same with Tenet, and the same with this movie. I'm not in any rush to watch this again. It was a slog to get to the end at times. Yeah, and I did like I said, the courtroom stuff when they were had to kind of justify their actions and stuff. I was intrigued, kind of post bomb situation of the story, even though it had like 6 endings. I was okay with that, and I think that because of the kind of over the last few years, the standard of movies has really dropped. I think people are kind of ignoring the flaws in this movie, and not demanding better. And like I said, it was good, definitely well made, but compared to kind of the emotional intrigue of some of the other movies that particularly Nolan has done, I felt like it was lacking, personally. But so please tell me your overall thoughts on Oppenheimer.
So for me, of the only Nolan films that I've seen, which is the Batman trilogy and Inception. So I have not seen any other Nolan film.
Mm.
Out of the 5 that I've seen, this is my favorite of the 5. And I think it's the most well made of the 5, and probably too, like, I got a little bit more of the emotional aspect from it, the character acting and the things that they didn't say. So for me, it was a lot of show, not tell. So those moral issues, and it made sense that scientists of that time and people of that time being very reserved on their thoughts on, fighting Nazi Germany and fighting imperialist Japan. Kind
I
of,
will have to disagree on
especially
that. We'll
here,
have to disagree on that.
especially here in the US,
Mm.
on like just the history of what I've read. But I liked the film a lot. Really enjoyed understanding the storytelling by the end. So now when you finish the movie and you're like, okay, now I fully get what he was trying to tell me, even though I didn't get it completely in the middle. Maybe I'll see it again. Who knows? It's 3 hours. Probably not. Visually stunning. I thought it was acted well. I thought the pacing was well. And maybe I'm not demanding more from my movies, but to me, if you're going to hit on good acting, good pacing, good directing, then I guess I'm not going to ask for more.
I do recommend these other movies though, so if you like this, they're gonna blow your socks off, I'll tell you. But anyway, guys, that has been the review for Oppenheimer. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time on Off the Wall.